The decline is stark. When I spoke about the adult exodus from karting, I noted that in the mid-70s there were around 3,500 seniors actively participating in the sport. A significant portion of those were gearbox drivers. Now, we're likely down to around 250 regular competitors. Nothing quite lives in the shadow of its former self like Superkarts does. Having spent time in the paddock and familiarising myself with its history, it's clear that while its survival is a small miracle, superkarting isn't merely a nostalgic anachronism that requires a history lesson to appreciate. It's a sport that once thrived, full of ingenuity and adventure, but now languishes in relative obscurity. In the pioneering days of karting, gearbox karting was ubiquitous. It wasn't the minor sideshow in the UK that it represents today. Flip through any karting magazine from the 60s and 70s and you'll find pages crammed with events across the country, each unique, daring and full of life. Take for example the Snetterton 9-hour race, where the special Burgess laydown kart made its debut, or the Douglas GP in Southern 100 on the Isle of Man, or even the World Cup at Haysham. Gearbox karting, often dominated by the Villiers powered 200 class, was everywhere. Recently I spent 2 days at the British Historic Kart Club's event as part of the annual Shennington Super Prix. There I drooled over an array of stunning karts, including a very special ex-Bolin rear-engine superkart. I was told it never quite worked, but seeing it got me thinking. Where are the renegades, the innovators, the people who are wired a bit differently? Where have they all gone? Superkarts are truly fascinating because they represent a prototype class in the truest sense. Any budding engineer can design and build a chassis and aero kit from the ground up. The UK boasts one of the strongest motorsport engineering cultures in the world, yet right now it seems all the best young creative minds are being funneled into CAD programs, drawing parts for F1 cars, often for mediocre wages. This isn't to say that someone could make a career out of building a superkart, but as an exercise in expressing one's engineering prowess, few opportunities compare. This is superkarting's unique selling point, a platform for creativity and innovation. Reviving the grid, how do we get the adults back? I'll start with a target, something often missing from strategic discussions. Aiming to bring in 500 additional regular competitors seems like a reasonable goal. We must appreciate the investment we're asking people to make when they enter karting, particularly gearbox karting. I'll detail some easy wins later, but it's crucial to acknowledge that this won't be an easy task. It's tragic that superkart videos can attract millions of views on YouTube, yet the sport sees so little uptake in new competitors. This is why I believe 500 is an achievable target, though it will require an aggressive strategy. Remember, the British Superkart GP at Silverstone attracted 381 entries in 1981. This is just for one event. The introduction of cadets in 1987, coupled with the loss of the Daily Express as a sponsor, signalled the end of the golden era. We must learn from that lesson, the big one being that perception matters. Another defeated phrase I want to reject is the notion that people don't want to get their hands dirty anymore. While I can't vouch for the survey's credibility, Haggerty reported a growing interest in classic cars, with 34% of millennials happy to do DIY work on their own cars. While it's not a massive number, it's still significant. It demonstrates that in one of the key target markets, there's still an appetite for hands-on activities. I'm optimistic that younger generations can equally find joy in this kind of engagement. It's easy to write people off, but I think there's a growing hunger for real-world, high-risk activities. It's important to recognise the cycle that affects almost all cultural phenomena, including motorsport. First comes novelty, a unique idea from some idiosyncratic eccentric that captures the imagination and spreads like wildfire. This period is exhilarating as a movement begins to form. But out of that chaos comes order. Regulations form and refine the sport, bringing stability, but with stability comes decay. The creative mind rebels at stagnation, as Sherlock Holmes once said. And as the movement sheds its creative individuals, often due to over-regulation and increasing complexity, decline accelerates. People are left wondering what went wrong. This is precisely what has befallen supercars. What was once an exciting and adventurous form of motorsport has stagnated and declined. The marketing efforts are often derivative and poor. The sport is like a rudderless ship, lacking true creativity. While this is a criticism, I understand that those who put in the effort aren't always capable of delivering what's needed. Creativity comes at a huge cost, and those burdened with it are often transient, here today, gone tomorrow. Superkarts has a few survivors left, but they're not the most creative, I'm sorry to say. There's value in conscientiousness, of course. It's kept this form of motorsport alive, but it needs a big injection of life. Right now it's treated like a village hall market with a few barely legible signs in the neighbouring villages. Easy wins. Motorsport UK, in their eternal wisdom, has struggled to understand human behaviour for quite some years now, placing administrative hurdles in front of people trying to engage in an activity is a surefire way to suppress interest. Web shop administrators know well that you should ask people to register their account at the end of an order, not at the start. This simple change netted one retailer hundreds of millions of pounds in extra sales. When Motorsport UK introduced the ARCS test and start karting packs, they must not have considered how normal we humans behave. It's a hassle no one wants or needs. These issues can be fixed quite easily. Get rid of the start karting pack, it's a nonsense. The ARCS test is debatable. The clerk can assess novices during the Saturday practice before their first race meeting. It doesn't need to be a formal booked event, just remove any bureaucratic hurdles. Someone within Superkarts needs to Google how to start superkarting and see how convoluted and confusing the process is. Just a few bullet points is needed, like do this, and then go racing. It really should be that simple. There's good hassle, which we'll focus on, but anything on the paperwork end of the spectrum is bad hassle. It's evident that creative people really hate bad hassle, which partly explains why karting has lost so many creative individuals. Start on short circuits. During the heyday of superkart racing, the Superkart GP attracted a staggering 381 competitors, but it's crucial to remember that these drivers honed their skills and built their confidence on short circuits like Kimbolton, Shennington and Thornbeck. These tracks served as the breeding grounds for long circuit competitors. Running up to a place like Kimbolton and watching a class of superkarts carve through the corners is far less intimidating than arriving at Silverstone, feeling completely out of your depth. The focus therefore should be on nurturing long circuit karts by growing them within the short circuit scene. The decline in short circuit gearbox karting, particularly in the 125 classes, coincided with the rise of KZ, formerly ICC, and the disappearance of the laydown chassis. This shift further severed the natural progression from short circuit to long circuit karting, particularly as 250 National, now oddly rebranded as 250 Superkart Mono, waned in popularity. Rebuilding short circuit participation is critical because expanding long circuit karting comes with considerable financial risk. Organisers are often forced to book 2 grids just to have room for potential growth, and this isn't cheap. The only way to mitigate this risk is by cultivating a large base of short circuit drivers who are prepared and eager to transition into long circuit racing. This isn't about moving up, but moving into a different aspect of the sport. A shared programme that includes both short and long circuits with the same group of drivers is vital for maintaining a healthy ecosystem within superkarting. Focus on the engineering side and the value of good hassle. Promoting 100cc karts over the years has taught me that hassle isn't always a negative, it's a feature, not a bug. Despite the challenges, such as unknowable supply and the difficulty of finding specific components, this very unpredictability has drawn hundreds of entries to the series I've organised or promoted over the years. It's about culture. When you strip a sport of its cultural quirks and engineering challenges, it becomes bland and loses its allure, driving away the very people who once kept it vibrant. Superkarts remain unique because, unlike short circuit karting, where engineering has been stifled by spec homogeny, there's still room to build a superkart from scratch and express a level of engineering freedom. Engineering as a key component of competition nurtures a happy to be out there factor that's increasingly rare. When drivers are engaged in testing and refining their ideas, they develop an appreciation for performance differentiation. In spec-dominated short-circuit racing, a mere quarter of a second gap can induce panic because the expectation is that everything should be equal. But in a sport where engineering is central, this is just part of the challenge. Each lap becomes a new adventure, a new puzzle to solve, rather than merely logging hours on the engine. When engineering is the focus, it opens up a wider range of satisfaction for drivers. They can find joy not just in winning, but in the process of refining their machines, solving problems and pushing boundaries. This creates a cultural force that can sweep people up, making them more invested in the sport. And let's not assume that this approach won't appeal to a younger audience. YouTube is full of channels where people build and modify all kinds of crazy creations. There's an appetite for good hassle, tasks that are challenging but rewarding. The key is to strike a balance. Make some things easier to encourage participation, but keep other things challenging to maintain the sport's integrity and appeal. That's how you create a truly compelling experience. Don't hide on Facebook groups. Social media has revolutionised the way people connect and share their passions, allowing niche communities to reach millions, a feat that was unthinkable just a few decades ago. Yet this digital revolution has a downside. Superkarts, along with their rich culture, have increasingly become hidden within a maze of Facebook groups, inaccessible to those outside the sport. Instead of expanding its reach, the sport has unintentionally buried itself in a digital echo chamber. In the past, media outlets and magazines acted as intermediaries, providing a platform for the curious to discover and engage with the world of superkarts. These publications served as gateways, introducing new enthusiasts to the sport, but with their decline, the sport has become harder to discover than it was 30 years ago, a bizarre twist in the age of information. While I use social media, particularly Facebook, to generate interest, I do so with a clear understanding of my target audience. Facebook is a powerful tool, but it's just that, a tool, not a strategy. If we're not actively working to reach new people, relying solely on Facebook to carry the load, this will only lead supercars further slide into obscurity. The sport needs a multifaceted approach to outreach, one that goes beyond the confines of social media and revives the kind of accessible, engaging presence that once drew people in. Be weird. It's ironic that a sport as wild and exhilarating as superkarts has now become so introverted. I can instantly recall the larger-than-life personas of Bert Hesketh, Alan Burgess and Martin Hines, but where are their modern counterparts? Who is standing up and embracing the eccentricity that once defined the sport? The problem facing many race series today is that they've become too sanitised, too focused on playing it safe. They market themselves in the most conventional, predictable ways, offering no call to adventure, just a call to mundanity. It's all very bland and it's killing the excitement that motorsport should always invoke. Here's a free idea. Take Superkarting UK's King of Cadwell event. The name is catchy, sure, but beyond that there was nothing particularly memorable about it. The marketing was lacklustre, borderline, horrendous, sorry, I'm being honest, which can sometimes work out, funnily enough, but not in this case. Yet this event has so much untapped potential. Imagine this. After the race, install an actual throne in the paddock and hold a crowning ceremony for the winner. Go all in. Robe, staff, the works. Make it look bizarrely extravagant, like something out of a medieval fantasy. This would instantly make the event feel special, unique, and yes, weird, but in the best way possible. Drivers might be hesitant, sure, but if you make it look seriously epic, not some cheap costume shop effort, it could generate buzz across the motorsport world. A world currently starved for something truly and genuinely captivating. This is the kind of bold, quirky move that made Valentino Rossi a legend. Don't shy away from the call to adventure. Embrace it. Be adventurous. Be weird. A note to drivers. Yes, your onboard videos are slick, but let's be honest, they're a bit dull. Remember, you're not just driving for yourself, you're ambassadors for the sport. Take a page from Jack Tritton and Carl Hume, who've done a commendable job of putting themselves out there. But don't stop at that. Study how successful YouTube channels generate views and engagement. Be fun, be inviting, and make sure you're showing potential newcomers that they can be part of this adventure too. It's on you to spread the word, so take responsibility. Show, don't tell. Here's a crucial piece of advice. Don't just tell people what makes Superkart special. Show them. Don't just say superkarting is great for those who love engineering. Instead, make a video about the work you're doing on a rear wing or diffuser. Show the intricate details. Reach out to publications like Race Car Engineering and offer them a glimpse into the craftsmanship that goes into building a machine that can shatter lap records. Demonstrate the appeal, don't just describe it. If you want to convince people that superkarts can be raced on a budget, then tell that story. Show how it's done with clever problem solving and resourcefulness. Let the work speak for itself. Is there a good on-ramp? The key to everything I've discussed hinges on the engineering aspect. But this needs nurturing. Superkarting does have some barriers when it comes to welcoming newcomers into the culture. How can you make it simple yet complex? It's a question I've pondered often. I suspect there's a gap in the market just waiting to be filled. Consider introducing a twin engine class, maybe Rotax X30 or another accessible platform. These engines are readily available, but building a kart around them still demands engineering ingenuity. There's no simple off-the-shelf solution here, which is precisely the point. I don't think KZ has worked out for various reasons, but I believe a twin 125cc single gear class could strike the right balance. It would foster that happy to be out there factor while delivering competitive lap times. As Rory Sutherland often says, the opposite of a good idea can be another good idea. So have at it. Come up with some ideas. Closing notes. Let's wrap a few things up that we should avoid. Don't invite famous people to drive. Sure, they might say, wow, that's fast, but it won't generate the kind of participatory interest we need. More often than not, it backfires, leading to sentiments like, that's too dangerous for me, which I think often stirs up negative emotions. Don't assume new competitors will just materialise from the motorsport ether. They won't. Superkarts aren't guaranteed to be around forever, so take action now. Be weird, be adventurous, and if you need help making it happen, don't hesitate to reach out and get in touch.